All right. What is up, fellow anti-netters, ladies and gentlemen? I've got Lane here. You may recognize him from a video we did previously. And Lane and I have been keeping in touch. And, we were bouncing ideas off one another of doing another video. And here we are. We've decided to just, roll with this and do another video. And we decided to, I think we were talking last week, and we decided to not title a show or a series. Maybe we can make this into a playlist or something, but we decided to not title it the intellectual dark web because Lane didn't want people showing up at his doorstep, the FBI.
He's selling shrooms.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're getting on a flight for the holidays and get stopped at the airport because you have a show called the intellectual dark web. But yeah, Lane and I decided to we had a great time riffing on stuff and riffing on just really kind of intellectual stuff and developing knowledge. And last time that we were like, hey, let's try to do something else, another show or segment. And this time around, Lane suggested, which is in retrospect probably a pretty good idea, to kind of choose a theme or a topic to really base, I would say, maybe like 80% of this around. And we chose, I think it was your idea, but, maybe it was like why digital note taking sucks. And, when going into this, I was like, you know what, why don't we just, the love of everyone in PKM, personal knowledge management, seems to be, Obsidian, the tool
The
Obsidian.
elephant in the room.
Yes. And, I guess there's also Rome research, so that falls into the same category. But I was like, you know what, why don't we just let's base this one and see how it does, see if people like it on really around the theme of why Obsidian sucks. And, we can kind of, if you're watching this and you use Rome research or some other digital tool, that doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. It's really kind of
yours suck too.
your digital note taking apps suck. but
we're just
not
picking
even,
on Obsidian right now.
Yeah, they're not even as popular as Obsidian to suck as bad.
Yeah, so you're Obsidian like fringe suck.
Your fringe tool sucks. And it's funny, it's because I have a lot of experience with Obsidian, aka the tool that is the greatest suck of them all. And so I feel qualified to speak on this. And I've got a ton of notes and built in Obsidian. I've also tried, I've tried the other tools like Rome Research and Evernote back in the day. I've had many, like even probably as far back as like 2009 or 2010. Like I tried Evernote, and then every 5 years, I think I would convince myself that, oh my God, I should try Evernote again. And then each time lasts like a month and a half, and I'm like, this sucks. But yeah, the king of suck right now is Obsidian because it's so popular. And the funny thing is a lot of people that are going to watch this are, digital Zettelkasten folk and people that are staunchly committed to digital because they're, people that have, 10,000 or 12,000 notes written out in these systems. And, the idea of just torching that and moving on to something more effective is unfathomable. And they're going through the sunk cost fallacy. But also, maybe, for some people, I'll just add this little friendly disclaimer is, maybe, they're a programmer or something, the way they think like that, maybe digital is a tool that fine, stick with it, stick with in my opinion, at least for me, it's a less effective tool than an analog tool, but stick with it. It's like, on one hand, I want to get, the I don't know, the word out, the gospel that actually analog is a better tool for developing your mind and developing your thoughts. But on the other hand, I think it would kind of suck if everyone, 100% of the people, were just using analog tools, because it makes the landscape of Zettelkasten and the, of knowledge a little bit less unique and have less personality, and makes it more boring. It's like, I'm fine having the anti-net people and the analog people be the kind of the fringe group and the ones that are like, really getting a lot of superpower out of using the tool. So anyways, that's a kind of a unique way of positioning this. It's like, I'm not trying to convert or convince everyone that, you need to adopt the analog workflow and analog medium for developing thought, even though, quite frankly, I adamantly believe that it is by far the best way to develop knowledge. So anyways, that's my preamble.
Yeah. It's definitely I mean, there's a hybrid approach too that I think can work for people. I saw a video the other day of I guess a guy that's in for his PhD in computer science, and he still writes his notes and he prints out, even articles and reads them and writes them down in index cards. So I'm watching him do this, and he transfers them to Obsidian fleeting notes, what he calls them, right? And then the funny thing is, and he's like, so now that I've transferred these notes over to the Obsidian, he rips them in half and throws them in the trash. But before that, I was like, oh, cool, he's running an analog and a digital, and okay, maybe I can see some value. But he just rips up his handwritten notes.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because the whole fleeting notes, I wrote like a section of that in my book lately, I think yesterday, about that. It's like, it's funny because fleeting notes, permanent notes, literature notes, and project notes. One that gets forgotten is Sankei Arens talks about the concept of project notes, but all four of those terms are seemingly synonymous with the whole Zettelkasten philosophy, and they are terms that Luhmann himself never used, and quite frankly, for the most part, Luhmann himself didn't ascribe by those terms. They're Arensian inventions that have become part of the Zettelkasten canon, which is similar to how it's funny. It's like there's a lot of parallels between the New Testament and the early Catholic Church and the state of Zettelkasten.
You've created the schism of 1054 in the Zettelkasten world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if Jesus came back today, he would see these immaculate, sculptures and statues and buildings and everything, and Jesus was this illiterate Jew that spoke Aramaic from Galilee or in Nazareth, like this poor town. He would be just like so confused. Like, he's like, literally every single thing I taught has been transformed.
It's like, hold on, the Romans crucified me, and now they're going to take my fucking religion and turn it into a digital. Thanks a lot, Rome.
It is essentially that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're the
killed by the Romans.
Christianity is what anti-net is. We're the Syriac Orthodox Christian early church.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is, we're the acidic, poor Jews of Galilee that
we're in the caves, like writing on stone tablets, the Red Sea Scrolls. Exactly. Meanwhile, over in Rome, Rome Obsidian, they're over there with their marble, their legalistic views.
Exactly. Yeah. Constantine is having a conversion on his deathbed.
A mediary, Let the Obsidian can take your sins. Only Obsidian.
There's a conversion on the deathbed, espousing wiki links and backlinks of Obsidian by a great Roman
Christ
emperor.
Said, Let the wiki link.
Meanwhile, like, Luhmann is just rolling in his grave, because basically his notebook system has been transformed into this, digital I don't know, school of
thought. They've stolen it and put it in underneath the Vatican where no one can see it. We're heretics, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyways, for all of our watchers and listeners, this is where you will get the true secrets of Taught by Jesus, and this we are the Gospel of Thomas version here. The Gospel of Scheper and Lane. So I swear to God, it kind of is, this, and I would liken Sankei Arens in his book, How to Take Smart Notes, to like Paul, you know.
Yeah.
And Paul like Paul like
he's like, I don't give a fuck.
Paul was like a Pharisees, you know, that like
Yeah.
condemned Jesus like 30 or 40 years after you know, Jesus's death. All of a sudden Paul is like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever, and then just writes, you know, 13 letters and invents all of these other instantiations onto it, and then we're left with this confused digital hyperlinking note-taking system and digital gardens and all of these buzzwords and all of this stuff, and you know, people creating, you know, $3,000 courses for you know, how to take notes.
Where's yours, man?
Productive.
We need a $3,000 course. I'll help market it.
Yeah, this isn't
the new
going
entrepreneur
to age well because like a year from now I'm going to be probably launching a
I'll branch off from you and start the Protestant side of that, where it's like what's it called, when you the Protestants are really big about it. They're I can't remember, but anyway,
you'll launch you'll be that Latter-day anti-net.
Yeah,
the Latter-day Saints
Latter-day anti-net.
yeah. So yeah. Anyway, yeah.
The funny thing is, though, although we're joking about this, if you think about it, like, but writing by hand is much more closer to consciousness, you know, God,
for sure.
you know, things like that,
That's
spiritual, you know, because you're kinetically and consciously, you know, connecting with the world of ideas, the universe, right? So I mean, not to get, but you know, I think it's funny, we were joking about it, and I was like, you know what, this is kind of, we are kind
it's
of
true. That's actually you know, let's see here, that's number 6 on my list. Handwriting captures consciousness. I swear to God, there it is. Yeah, you can see it.
Totally.
It does. So it's like, you know, handwriting, it captures, because when you go back and look at it, you see your past self in your handwriting, in your note. And that's that's, you know, one of the things that why Obsidian sucks. It's like all you have is, you know, Arial font or whatever cool font that you decide to customize Obsidian with, which is like yet another time suck it enables. It enables essentially you didn't major in the minor. But yeah, what should we? It just doesn't.
What? Go ahead. Yeah,
I was gonna say, should we continue riffing like this, or should we go down the list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like one at a time? I mean, I think honestly we're doing a good job just moving around and tackling a lot of these.
Yeah, cons. I mean, I think it naturally comes up, and if it doesn't, then you know, point out. You have the note cards, I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you see, if like we're missing something integral, then obviously, you know, bring it up and we can talk about it. But yeah, I'd say let the free flow go.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that, you know, the whole font thing, typeface thing, it really does strip character out of what you're doing, what you're writing, what you're working with. I mean, the idea of writing down, and especially the way I write, I'm very messy, and scribbling and rewording. I don't think I've done it both ways. You know, growing up, I'm old enough that computers weren't available readily until I was like in my 18 to 20-year-old. You know, before then it was typewriters and writing. So I've written by hand, and I've done a lot of typing throughout college and my professional career. And there's definitely not the same character. There's not a development of a internal mini dialogue that's going on between even the little words you're writing, because you can take one course, which is just, I'm going to write, edit later. Very rarely do people do that. We stop, edit. I'm guilty of it too. I try not to be. And so when you do that, you're pulling yourself out of reflexivity, you know, on the writing part, which with writing, naturally, even if you misspell a word, you might scratch it out, but it's not the same. There's something about, you know, working in a computer interface that, I mean, we are the computer interface. We don't need another one. Is between our thoughts is the way I'm looking at it. It strips our internal character away from it.
Yeah, and you know, I was writing about this today. Is how human memory works. It is multidimensional. It's made up of many facets, and they act as cues, right? And so, for instance, I've added additional contextual cues to my notes And I've added it. Even I have a note in my anti-net in this for the section on love, and it's in like the psychology section.
Mhm.
And I wrote it on an actual leaf. So I have an actual leaf cut out, or not cut out, but like taken. And I had my fiance go and grab it when she was on a hike. And I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting way. So I can, like, whenever I, want to navigate or come across, the topic of love, I instantly know in my anti-net kind of where it is, and I can like navigate to it very clearly. But when I get to that leaf, it's not just, that note is multi-dimensional, right? It has a story. It has that whenever I see it, and I've written the Beatles lyrics, "All you need is love" on it, as just a joke for like a starter of that category, right? But when I look at that note, it has so much context. It's called external context in human memory. And I see that note. I see that as, an actual leaf. So that's already a different dimension. I see that it has, love and the Beatles lyrics written on it. And then I see that leaf and I know that there's a story attached to it. My fiance, and I can picture myself, me asking her to go and get that when she was on a hike, and then, getting that leaf. So like when I see that, it triggers something in my mind, right? Where there's a whole other backstory to that knowledge. And then I go to this, the card behind that. And then there, I see my own handwriting, and I kind of can picture and remember what I was reading, where it was, what it looks like. All this stuff is stamped, permanently, right?
Yeah.
And it is there, and it evolves, right?
Yeah.
In digital tools like Obsidian, you're constantly editing, deleting, stripping it of its character. And even in the first place, there hardly was any character.
There
because
is no
it's
character.
Yeah, it's unidimensional. There's only like one dimension. There's like, text and characters, like Arial font or whatever, and that's it. You don't even know. You don't have any proof if you actually wrote it, or if you've, copy and pasted it into Obsidian,
which is typically what happens, copy and paste.
Yeah, I mean, most people, it's like, you're taught to like a lot of the PKM people, and I've taken a course on this. They teach you best practices, like never copy and paste, right? But it's like, okay, I'll ascribe by that. Yeah. And then, like, 3.5 months pass, and then, you've got your Kindle highlights in front of you, and you want to use it as an excerpt. Of course, you're going to copy and paste it. You're not going to retype it in there. And so, you naturally become a little bit lazier because digital makes it so easy. And then, you copy and paste, and you start doing it more and more, and you create a habit. With like the biggest cons of an analog, the perceived cons of an analog note-taking system, are its biggest strength. Yes, you can't copy and paste in an analog note-taking system. You have to write it down. You have to, neuro imprint it on your mind by writing it down, quote by quote, quote, every word. And once again, this is a feature that Obsidian does not enforce. It's another reason why Obsidian sucks.
Yeah. I even, this past week, I've been, well, I won't say I've been lazy intellectually. I haven't been working in my anti-net as much as I normally. I have been writing a lot. And at one point,
don't worry, we'll cut this part out in the video.
Well, I mean, it's not because I don't want to do it. I'm getting, but the beauty of it is that I was writing a lot, mostly in my journal and everything, because I was just going all over the place, and I wasn't sure, like, well, how am I fit? Well, let me take that back. I wasn't reading, but I was writing a lot. I was writing on my note cards, but I was writing over a lot of different things. And I even wrote like in a quick document online, on my computer. And I noticed that by far all the notes that were written on my note cards compared to the ones I jotted down real quick because I was at the computer, and I was what I mean is I was being lazy. I just didn't turn around and go back over here to my anti-net box and grab a card and write it down, because I ran out of cards. And by far the ones written on the note cards were just, I mean, so
more
much deeper and developed. And even, you could see the fight going on, right? I mean, to understand, to stand under the weight of what I was struggling with, because I'm working with a lot of my own ideas, which I haven't, which is the reason why I've been reading Peterson back here as much, is because I'm kind of locked in my own ideas right now, and I want to get them down. And you can see me struggling on the note card. You cannot see that, nor the intellectual struggle, the fight, like it's literally you're wrestling with ideas. You can't see that in the notes, nor are they as good on the computer. I was using Obsidian.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It's because I out of all the tools we're saying why Obsidian sucks, yet out of all of the note-taking tools I've tried, it's like the best one. Like the writing editor, it's so snappy.
Yeah,
it's so quick.
It's pretty.
It's pretty. For writing my book, I almost wrote it in Obsidian, but thankfully I found Ulysses, which is better. Is great. Yeah, it's better for actually writing and
I miss Ulysses because I used to use it when I had my MacBook, and I've been on the PC for a while, and you can't get it on there. And then I used to be a Scrivener fan back in college when it first came out. But I watched that video the other day where you were talking about it's like the major and the minor, and Scrivener, that is the perfect.
Oh yeah, that's the epitome of majoring in the minor. Yeah, it just, that freaking thing just is a beast too. It's constantly crashing. And I'm like, Jesus, this is like, it's like Microsoft Word on steroids, which also isn't a good thing because it just crashes way more.
I definitely like the minimalist thing, like Ulysses. But you definitely can see a difference in the handwritten note versus handwritten notes versus whatever. I wrote a couple of things in Obsidian because I was even looking at Obsidian as writing my articles, because I haven't found a Ulysses type. I mean, there's IA, right? One A writer or whatever is supposed to be good, but it's not as good as Ulysses. I've tried it out. So I was in there playing around. Let me take my note and start being, being a lazy fuck that I am, instead of turn literally.
It's I feel you on two levels. First off is like, I'm writing the book, and I'm, for the past about a year ago is when I really started writing the book on the anti-net Zettelkasten. And I really only started writing it, like sitting down to just focus on actually, I have a brick of a full cabinet of these note cards, right? And then I just started, writing about like 3.5 months ago, maybe. And I'm at God, I don't even know how many words I have.
Volume 5.
Yeah, seriously. It was because
I'm like, dude, are you ever gonna stop?
Yeah, no, I'm almost there.
Okay.
I have let's see how many words I have in this beast. There are 158,000 words written.
Wow.
I've got a ton of pictures as well. It's not just words. Like, no one wants words. I've got diagrams, pictures of the actual card, which I guess is if I even had one picture, I would have one picture more than how to take smart notes, that book. So I think I'm doing pretty good there. I've got I don't know, 50.
God, I'd love to see your book sell 100. Even half as well as his. His is hard. It's just I don't get it. And every review I've read, I mean, you have some glowing, frapping type reviews that he gets, but a lot of them are like, he didn't explain how to do the actual, system.
Yeah. I was thinking about that today. I'm wondering if that's what actually made it sell better or work better, because they're like, he's added this mysticism for how it works. If he showed the actual, how Lumen's note cards actually looked and stuff, you'd be like, oh, that's all we're talking about here. Like this just messy process. And that's precisely what, this whole thing is. It's messy. It needs to be, there's pen ink and sweat and tears on your note cards, it's like
coffee stains and
yeah. I mean, on Lumen's note cards, on the back of some of them were he used old coloring books from his kids, that they didn't use. He would slice it up and use it to save money, so it's but
I would totally do that if I could write on such thin paper. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I would cut out, like I would use scrap paper a lot, but it's like I need that thickness of the index card.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is I resonate with you on, for lately and ever since I've been working on this book, I have, I've still been, writing main notes here and there, but I used to write probably like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 main notes, like reflection notes, big notes per day,
Mm-hmm.
and install them in my antinet. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing now is I'm maybe doing one at most, because I'm like basically going through all of my cards and using them as a communication partner to
Mm-hmm.
write. I place them down on my desk, and then I write into Ulysses. And that's essentially how Lumen did as well. So I'm like kind of I resonate with you. It's like, and then I'm also, as I'm writing this book, I'm also still reading. So I'm like, I have a chapter on tree structures and how powerful tree structures are for evolving your thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think last week or the week before, I read a great book on tree structures as visualization tools for knowledge. And so I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
crap, I already wrote that chapter. So I'm finding a bunch of material to plug in. And 3 or 4 of them, of the new pieces of material, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to write an actual main note or reflection note. I'm just going to go straight in and write the note, and write the reflection and like relate it into the actual chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, it's like, yeah, it worked, but you can also tell it's not as fully developed as if I wrote the reflection and the main note down by hand. And so I started, to do the double work of writing it down by hand first, and then installing it, and then immediately putting it into the section of my book. And it like, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, it's like the hard way is the best way. Slowing down your mind, it definitely shows. And you can get away with it if you've built out a book, primarily with like, 1,000 note cards like written out, and you can insert some in there. But yeah, I just can't imagine, trying to go through the mountainous mess of notes that people assemble in Obsidian and then try to actually write and produce something out of it. It's just like a copy and paste and editing nightmare that, you're just like copy and pasting, piecing together half developed thought. It's like, that's not that valuable.
It's also, I've used Obsidian enough in the past that, great. It has a great search function, right? I mean, you can find anything pretty quickly. I mean, and let's be honest, faster than really in your anti-net if you want to, because it's like the speed of a computer.
Absolutely.
But the problem is when I have done that in the past, the problem is that there's something about rereading those notes that is just not the same as it is on my note cards. There's something about physically handling and it's something, what it is? It goes back to kind of the typeface thing, because all the typeface is the same. It's hard to pull one thing where, like, if I'm looking through I'm looking at blank note cards, but if I am looking at my note cards, a word, no matter how messy it is, even if it's not underlined for my index to refind, or as a link note, it'll still pop out to me. It will not on a screen. Right. You're looking at dense. I mean, even if you break them up in nice paragraphs, you are looking at dense, the same typeface on the same background, where on the note, I will do that. Like yesterday, I went through every one of my notes I've written so far, just to do a full.
It's called maintenance rehearsal in
human memory. Rehearsal. Yeah. Well, I do that daily, but yesterday I went through in a deep reflection. Like I'm gonna develop some of these ideas that have been in my head. But I noticed that I would pick out a word, like one word down there, and it would like literally start a new chain of thought. I wouldn't do that in Obsidian. I've never done that in Obsidian. I wasn't ever like, oh, that word, and and then start a new note. It just never happened.
Yeah, I think. And that's something I've written about and talk about a lot, is search is a bug. It is not a feature. Search is
that's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Okay. So what I mean by that is, when you search in Obsidian, all you're doing, like if you search, any word, you're just filtering a bunch of irrelevant material and results. Like if I search, if I think of the term love, for instance, right? if I search love, I'm getting like, 58 results in Obsidian for love. Like, blank loves to do that. And, Mike loves this. And, like 58 and all. So you're spending a lot of time like sorting through irrelevant stuff. And there's stuff that really shouldn't be connected. Number one.
That's totally true.
And then maybe you can find what you were thinking of or looking for. And oftentimes, at least in my experience, it's like not really even that, like you didn't even process and get the note that far whenever you're searching for whatever you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, when you with analog, with the antinet, what you have to do, and you do not have to do this in digital. Like on digital, you can search any term on the fly. You do not have to create your index because everything is indexed.
Yeah.
With an antinet, you have to manually create your own index, which means and you have to be very selective. Otherwise, you would spend your entire life creating, an index key term for every single word that is on a note card.
Yeah.
So with the antinet, you have to be very, very selective, which enables you to only surface up the key terms in the index that are super important.
Yeah.
What this also does is, because you have to write down the key term, like, in my antinet, there's a key term entry for love in my index, right? And then love points to like 2427, right? That's like the location in my antinet, right? And but in doing that, I've stamped the key term love into my head, onto my brain, so that whenever I'm reading now in the future and I recognize a concept, I've immediately just think of love, because I've created my own index stamped in my head when reading. With digital tools like Obsidian, there's no incentive. You don't do that. And as a result of not slowing down and practicing the deliberate discipline of creating your own index, you never can kind of consolidate and develop what I call is the neuroassociative recall muscle. You're neuroassociating certain concepts and ideas with a term so that you can instantly and quickly recall it. This is what, as Lumina said, it translates to reading a lot differently. Like you read differently with the antinet. He used to say he reads with an eye towards the slip box or the note box,
Yeah.
And that is part of the function that, if you have a search box, it enables you to be lazy and just completely forego that disciplined practice, which is one of the things that really enabled Lumen to create so much prolific work in the first place.
You bring up a good point, actually, because now that I think about it, because I was like, let's be honest, the search function is faster than the anti-net index. But the truth of the matter is now that I think about going through my Obsidian, and I had, before I switched to our anti-net, I had, I don't know, 1,000 notes, knowledge base built up. And now that, and a lot of similarity, right? Because you kind of, I work in creativity. So a lot of just like my anti-nets, the biggest section linked now is creativity, right? And consciousness and connectedness and stuff like that. And so if I did search that, now I think about it, I had to wait, unless I knew specifically already the phrase search that I was looking for a phrase match. Yeah, I would get maybe 800 that come back, and I still have to go through those and figure out which one it is. So in reality, you make a good point. It is slower than good. That's one of those perfect things. Like people that come on here that want to, don't be surprised if you start getting bashed from the Obsidian folk coming in here because we said Obsidian sucks. But until they try the anti-net, they cannot say it. Just like I wouldn't want someone to sit there that's only anti-net that's never used Obsidian and then bash Obsidian, right? Because until you've used it, but I've used it, and I can say without a doubt, your point is valid now that I think about it. And I even made the mistake of going, what? Search function is quicker. And then when you were talking, I was like, what? I remember having to search through about 800 notes to try to find the one note that was based on, creative Discord, and literally I'd written so many notes on it, I still had to go through probably a good 20 notes to find the one that I wanted out of those 800 that returned. So ridiculous.
I again, I think the a lot of the truths, and this is once again, we'll go back to the religious arguments, is the you know, a lot of theologians and, you know, religious people, you know, they're like, oh, well, God is an incommunicable truth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, quite frankly, so is the anti-net.
Yeah.
It's like,
true.
you have to use it yourself. You have to see your consciousness yourself, your own handwriting. You have to see how it transforms your brain. And you know, the only right answer is to test both. I've tested both. You've tested both. I have about, like, I think 1,100 Obsidian notes in there. And it was a year ago. You know, I spent weekends working on this thing, so much time. I've customized the living hell out of it. I've created, you know, became like a template junkie. I had like every single note, you know, I would, you know, have hotkeys where I would, you know, command shift, I don't forget which one, command shift M, which would make me, you know, I would select a, you know, paragraph that would make me a new note and insert titles and all that stuff, all the macros.
I was linking like a bastard, man. It was like 500 links out of a note to 500.
Yeah.
It was almost like I wanted to see the power of it, right? It's like I got caught in the Matrix, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like Dante's like, you know, 7th level of hell or something. I just couldn't escape it.
I think that's what most people find themselves, and they don't want to admit it. It's just like they've become professional note takers, and their art, the end product that they are creating and working on, is Obsidian and like and all the linked notes. And you know, and that's not even how Lumen's anti-net, Lumen's Zettelkasten was. Like his was a tree structure. Obsidian is just a pile of leaves on the ground connected by a bunch of vines. You know, Lumen's was a tree structure with a bunch of different branches, bunch of different stems of thoughts, every single leaf branching off into a different direction. And then, you know, of course, there were remote links as well, you know, which were essentially the vines between different remote parts of the branches. But it was an actual structure, you know, and it was a rough structure. It was a weird structure, had different personality. And that's what gives it, it's like what Lumen called its communication partner, you know, its alter ego, he called it. Or the ghost in the box factor, as he referred to it in, you know, his own Zettelkasten. And it's just, I don't know, I kind of got off on a tangent there, but
no, it's a very valid point. Though, is that people need to understand that. My biggest hope is that someone will come and aside and hope that, you know, they do see that we're mainly joking, you know, about Obsidian sucking, but in reality, it does suck. I mean, it's I mean,
it does suck, and it does suck you in.
It's like me telling my it's like me telling my 10-year-old daughter, look, this medicine is going to suck, but it's going to heal you, right? It's good for you. And that's the way they should come into this, is understand. I'm not bashing on you as a, you know, Obsidian note taker, but I'm telling you that if you come over to the anti-net way of doing it, then you're I mean, I can't speak to production, you can, but I can speak to knowledge development or to insight breakthrough happens every day with me, almost to the point of like, you know, in a weird frustrating way, because it's taken me on all these branches, and, you know, but they're important and I need to discover them. If you want that, then the anti-net. If you don't want that, if you want to just make a YouTube channel and that's your end product, talking about note taking, or, you know, your end product is a template, or your end product is something of that nature, then go stay with Obsidian, because that's all it's good for. If you want to actually put work out in the world that like actually makes an impact on people, then I would say, you know, anti-net all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, one of the things let's close the loop on the search thing too, and then I want to come back to this as well, is the, you know, when you mentioned, like, maybe you would see like 800 search results, right? And if you were searching something at Obsidian, in the left-hand side of Obsidian, you see the little snippets, right? And so you only see like a little, maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5, you know, words around the search and search result, right? So you're not actually reviewing your entire card. You're just seeing like a few words and you're like, what the hell, what is that even referring to,
You
right?
still have to go
Well,
into it to figure it out if that's exactly
yes.
what you're looking
And,
for.
and so you would have to go and open up 800 different notes and review everything, which people never do when you're searching. When you're searching, you're in a state of, I want to get out of search mode, on digital mode. I want to get out of search mode as soon as possible. I just want to find the note and I want to get the hell out of actually having to, review.
Yeah.
Within the anti-net, it's not search, it's exploration. You are exploring, you are swinging from branch to branch, stem to stem, across every single leaf. And in doing so, you are practicing something called maintenance rehearsal in human memory, which is you're actually reviewing all of the notes and you're reviewing all of the stems of thought around the notes. So you're kind of essentially refreshing on all of that material and creating reverberation events. Like, if I'm searching for, I don't know, a concept on comprehension versus understanding, and that takes me to like an information science or knowledge section of my anti-net, I'm reviewing a bunch of the notes around that while I'm going and looking for it, and then that's taking me down other stems of thought. And all of those other things around it are then reminding me and creating reverberation in my head so that when I end up writing about comprehension versus understanding, or in the next day or that night when I'm reading something and I come across something that relates to not what I was like looking for, but like the surrounding branches, it allows me to like reignite that whole neural network of activity around in the anti-net and, come up with very useful and breakthrough insights. And that's just something that doesn't happen with Obsidian and doesn't happen with like digital note taking. It's a completely different experience altogether.
I mean, that phrase, if you can remember it, yes, I guess would get you there quicker, but you're not going to remember a specific phrase. So I'm looking up something like, connectedness on Obsidian. I get maybe, 50 notes back. I had to go through every one of them because it's not necessarily connectedness as the topic or the key term that I'm looking for. I just know somewhere I wrote about connectedness and maybe chaos. Right. So I have to look through the cards where I can go to the anti-net. I can look at my index connected. So that's 2612, 4, comma, 2612, 3, and oh, it's an 1100, 3 and everything. And I can immediately go find those cards. And then I usually look at the ones before and after because, again, the anti-net allows your brain to keep building a history or whatever. What do you call that when you're moving forward? You're writing like, you're seeing the development of your idea from one card to the next, even if they don't necessarily branch off or leaf off or anything. It's like the trunk of 2612 is all creativity. I know I can see the development. And then even sometimes I'll go back and slot a card in and, branch off. But my point is I can look at those like cards before and after, and you're building that memory, one, but you're also seeing it in context, which you just can't. If I did that search on Obsidian, it would not be the same. Even if I found that card, the card before, there is no card before it or after that tells me the development of that thought, right? I guess if you wrote it in with like timestamps or something, which I would never do.
Like an Obsidian or something. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So the anti-net definitely wins there. I mean, after we really talked it through, it made me remember how much of a hassle it was to search for something in Obsidian when you have a large note base.
Yeah. And, it's even if in the case of, which happens a lot in the anti-net, it's kind of the anti-net's kind of designed to make you explore. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you think of that idea and then you're like, oh, wait, crap, I didn't actually create an index key term entry for it, or you can't find it. It forces you to start asking questions. You're like, wait, so what else could it relate to? What else did it happen? Like what train of thought was I thinking of? What could it be related to chaos? Was it in the chaos branch? And so you start jogging your mind and working out your mind because there's no other option. You can't just, instantly try to search other key terms and try to find it, So it sets you out on this journey. And oftentimes I found it's like, it's almost like a fun process of finding it too. And then by the time you find it, you're like, okay, well, if I want to find this again, either A, you can just remind yourself of what it's related to, so that you can kind of like, I don't know, build in that neuroassociative recall muscle, so that you can like link together the ideas a little bit faster and find it in the future faster. Or what it forces you to do, or trains you to do, is actually create a key term, index entry, so that you can find it again. And what you've then done is created another link, in your mind. So yeah, that's I think that kind of encapsulates just, why search is a bug and not a feature. Everyone's like, oh, well, I would go to analog, but it doesn't have search. It's like, no, you don't want search. That's the thing that is preventing you from actually thinking and evolving and developing your mind. It's like search is the lazy man's, tool. It's just like, it's same with digital. It's like digital. It's like, oh, well, maybe in the future I can develop the thought, or maybe in the future it's, you can always put stuff off. With the internet, you're like, oh, you're doing things the hard way, and that's, I'm not the only one to preach this notion or come up with the notion that the hard way is better. Like Ryan Holiday, he has his own note box system. It's not, the Antinet style and Lumen style that's branched and treed and stuff like that. But, on his blog, he was approached, and they're like, oh, why don't you use digital? It's a lot easier. And he's like, I don't want the easy way. I want the hard way. I want it to take time. I want to be forced to actually develop my thought. Same with the author, Robert Greene, it's like, and even Elizabeth Gilbert. There's a ton of authors, wherever you go, you just start to find it, that, oh, their secret weapon is actually doing things the hard way and writing by hand. And that's where, again, Obsidian fails.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this will be my last point on the whole search function thing. The cool thing about I haven't even seen the full power of the Antinet yet. I mean, because I'm working so closely within a tight intellectual pursuit right now, just in creativity. Now I'm doing it within cognition, cognitive science, psychology, right? So the biggest, that's it. Now I got some stuff in literature that, but it's all surrounds like creativity. The cool thing is starting to develop into its own kind of like new, which is that stuff back there, its own framework into like how we explore chaos and creativity. But I haven't seen the full power like what you have, which is like, across a lot of different disciplines or domains of knowledge, right? I haven't done that yet. I mean, like I'm interested in, psychedelic therapy. I'm interested in, lots of things, physics, consciousness, and everything. So I know once I kind of get this, what I got to get out of me right now is going, then I want to start turning my attention to those domains, I guess you could say. So I could see the Antinet index system being even more powerful than where right now I don't really need to use it. I know it's in 2612 section. All right.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
It's like, I just know. Where in Obsidian, I would still have, if I did exactly what I did right now, I would still have to, like, the search function would be useless to me, is what I'm saying. I would still have to go through it. It would not give me the neuroassociative. I know that. And it certainly wouldn't give me the memory imprint, the actual physical cards, physical ink on cards, my unique handwriting, my ability to pick out a word. And the other thing that I just saw very often, this is not in that, but necessarily, but before I forget, is sometimes, have you ever, I mean, you said you're a messy writer too. Have you ever written a word or a sentence and you can't read it? And you have to sit there and work it out for a while. That is powerful, because it's like you go through all these other concepts. So sometimes I'll do that and I'll be like, I thought the sentence meant that. No, that's not what it meant. Oh, okay. But that's interesting. I thought that. So I'm going to start a new card on that, because it's like a new thing. And then I'll finally figure it out. So I don't know. What's that called, Scott?
For me, mostly, and no, it's definitely happened. But for me, I've found that to be, whenever I've like used an excerpt or a quote from an author or a book or something, and I'll be like, wait, like, I got to go and I actually have to go check the source to make sure he actually said that. It's like, did he say report or resort? Like, like, I'll that type of stuff will happen.
Sometimes I'll be even like, did I say that or did he? Because sometimes I'll put quotes. I usually try to only attribute quotation for the author, but sometimes I'm putting something that I want to. And then I'm like, I love shit. That wasn't my idea.
Oh yeah. No. Lately, and this is one of the benefits too of I think of analog and this whole system compared to like Obsidian. It's like I may not actually in Obsidian, right? I may not trust my own brilliance, right? Like I would, and that's it sounds like a, almost like an egotistical, grandiose thing to say, but I think for a lot of us, we're kind of like way too hard on ourselves, and we don't realize like the amazingly brilliant thoughts that we have had in the past, right? Like, and so I would come across like these thoughts in Obsidian and be like, oh yeah, that's really interesting, and not give myself enough credit for them. Within the anti-net, it's like, oh, I'm like, wait, did I link together like ideas and thoughts, and then I support it with like a quote that the author would say that says exactly that, and I'm like, wait, I actually linked that together, but did the author actually say that? And then I'm forced to actually go check the source and realize, holy crap, he did. And, it's for simple things. Like for instance, like the concept of, and that I teach is, because Lumen never talked about literature. He never used the term literature notes. He never used the term permanent notes. He never even used the term fleeting notes, nor did he actually even use or implement the concept
of fleeting notes. Heresy.
As far as we know.
Kill the witch.
Exactly. But it's like, so I'm like coming up with like the terms. I'm like, actually, what were his type of notes, right? And I've encapsulated my own terms for them. And one of the terms that I came up with are reformulations, because he reformulated material and repurposed them and redescribed them. And then I came across a note today where I'm like, okay, well, Lumen actually uses the term reformulations. It's like one he's like, one should not excerpt quotes, but they should reformulate the material. And I was like, crap, am I dreaming that he said that to support my term and usage of the term reformulation? Or like, where did that come from? And like, sure enough, I checked the source, and yes, like that he did say that it came from him. So it's like, oh, awesome. And so it's one of the things in like Obsidian, it's a lot of the times you don't like really, you discount your own brilliance, your own connections, and even accidents too. Like, because I kind of used reformulations and neuro imprinted that idea in my head, I was able to spot it when I saw it in the wild when reading. And I came across that, him actually using the term reformulations while reading a book called Nicholas Luhmann Shortcuts. And and it's kind of a hard to find book, and I've had to use my own, like it's written in German only. So I've had to use Google Translate,
oh, wow.
and read it. And I got to translate it actually. So, and then, I look back at the word. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he uses reformulations. It's probably like the German, version of that, like reform. I don't know. And, But still, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, great. And, I come across other terms the same. I use like the term observation notes and reflection notes. And, I've come across sayings of people and I'm like, oh, well, no, there's the quote written out in my own handwriting. I'm like, did they really actually say that? And I go back and check the sources. I'm like, yeah, okay, they did.
Yeah.
So,
and you can, trace that's what I like about the note card system is, the anti-net is that you can trace the lineage of the thought, because I'll look at something, I'll be like, did I say that? Or how was that informed? Or was that like, not that I believe in originality, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I believe in collective unconscious and things like that. But what it is leaps of magic and thought, and that's what makes brilliance. That's what makes genius, in my opinion. And so, I mean, because Luhmann was informed by all his reading, right? and his brilliance was his connecting the dots, seeing the patterns that no one else has seen. And so it's interesting when you're going through your cards that you're like, well, man, is that, was that me, or was that, how was I informed of that? And every once in a while there is that unique magical thought that is your own, right? Mm-hmm. That is not, of course it's informed. You can't be a human and not be informed by something, but maybe it was informed by your experience along with reading Shakespeare when you were 22, but that's an original thought in itself, right? I'm sure someone else's might have had that. Maybe they didn't write it down, or maybe they formulated it in a different way. But the point is that you can trace the lineage of your thought, which is important to me, because I don't want to F anybody out of their due scholarship, right? Mm-hmm. If it informs me directly, then it needs to be cited, period.
Oh yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
That's what I like about the system too. But it does help you trace the lineage.
Yeah, you become just like this footnote monster with like Luhmann's. Just, it's crazy seeing his books, how many mm-hmm. footnotes there are, but but he's it allows you to cite the sources in a very easy way, to support all of your ideas. Like, and they're not just like where you got the ideas. It might just be like, he did a lot of see alsos, confer mm-hmm. with the source, stuff like that. Yeah.
What else we got on our list?
Yeah, there was a lot. I guess one of the things that you just touched upon was, and this is also another reason why Obsidian sucks, is that, people ask, it's like, oh, well, what can the anti-net do that Obsidian can't do? And well, number one, it can't really force you to, the anti-net forces you to do things the hard way, the right way. And, you literally don't have the option of doing things the lazy way. And you actually have to develop your thoughts. But the other thing is that the anti-net, just like what you mentioned, it allows you to capture your mistakes and stamp them in time, and stamp your own, mistakes and thinking in time. And in Luhmann's, anti-net, his own anti-net Zettelkasten. And by the way, I continue to call it an anti-net because, the whole Zettelkasten term, all it means is note box. And his note box wasn't just a note box. It was a note box architected, with an analog nature, with the numeric alpha addresses, the tree-like structure, and the index, which is the acronym comprising anti-net. So I call it an anti-net, that's essentially what it is, because doesn't make sense to call it a note box, because Ryan Holiday has a note box too. Robert Greene does too, but it's not an anti-net. It's not a Luhmannian note box. I guess we can call it a Luhmannian note box, but that's kind of absurd as well. So I mean, in Luhmann's own anti-net, he had a lot of mistakes, and they documented them, and he never deleted the cards. He never updated it. He never said, so like going through his theory, so you can see, it's what Johannes Schmidt called, the backstage of his theory of everything in society, right? So you can see his own thoughts evolve. And, I have my own, versions of this as well. Like when I was reading, I think, Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, one of the things I noted down was the idea that, humans are the only animals that can forecast and think about the future. And then I called this, I'm like, oh yeah, see also like proprioception, but that was a mistake. What I was actually thinking of was a term called prospection that came from reading the book Stumbling on Happiness. And so instead of, deleting it like one would normally do in, Obsidian, right? Yeah. And rewriting it, I left it. I just put it like a little note that says, actually see also this card, and on the card it says, oh, actually, made a mistake, that I confused proprioception and prospection. See prospection, right? And I've stamped it in time that I've confused the two terms. Yeah. What that then allows me to do is it allows me to remind myself first and foremost about, the difference between the two, so I don't make the same mistake again. And I've stamped that in history, right? But it also allows me to, if say I decide to write about this concept, and I can start it out by saying, an easy mistake to make is to confuse proprioception with prospection, right?
Yeah.
So I've automatically added useful material that a lot of people, I mean, that's an example of, I don't know if everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, I always confuse proprioception and prospection, right? Like, maybe they won't, but that's just an instance of something where you develop these rich pathways. And, when using Obsidian, I used to commit it to and have it all stored in GitHub. So I would, every single day I would commit my latest version, so I could, in theory, view my changes to the documents by going and inspecting and going to GitHub and inspecting the changes over time. But let's be real, no one's ever going to freaking do that. We're all too busy trying to develop our own thoughts, right? You're not going to. And so what the anti-net really does well is it makes it fun to evolve and see your history, yet it doesn't take away from the experience. It's like with Obsidian, again, there's like, Obsidian is like every single bell and whistle tool, except it's like what they major in the minor. It's like everything they do is to develop and give you all these bells and whistles that help you do everything but think. It's like, oh, cool, I'm going to get distracted by backlinks. Backlinks are not even valuable at all.
Yeah.
That's another reason why Obsidian sucks. Obsidian distracts you with stupid bells and whistles features like backlinks. Backlinks aren't that useful. They're not useful in human memory. In human memory, how it works is forward associations, it's called, in human memory, is way more powerful and way more important than backwards associations, right? It's just like, if I want to follow a link, and if, say, I'm reviewing a note card that says, go see this, 2428/7. When I get to 2428/7, I don't care about the 18 places that, it links me to, or like that this card is linked to. That's just a distraction. And that's one of the things that people get hung up on, like with Obsidian. It's like they're the main feature. It's just like, no, that's not valuable. It's just yet another thing that's going to get in the way from you actually producing creative output and creative work. And it's like, on one hand, it's like, I was kind of like, when I decided to write this whole book on the anti-net, I was kind of a little, like, I'm like, wait, it's like, because I stopped. I was like, I was about to write a book on, a mix between life philosophy and psychology and copywriting, which is my craft, copywriter. And, I've created several companies. I've, done very, very well, marketing agencies in the past. And, my crypto company, the cryptocurrency that I started, it's just like, I think they got up to, at one point, it was like close to $1 billion market cap, and it's still running, it's still going, it's still doing well. I'm like, the work I have to Cardano.
I've been holding that forever.
What even is Cardano? No one even knows. It's like,
well, he keeps changing it. He's finally pissing people off.
Yeah.
There's tangible that.
There's no, it's fine. It's just like, where I'm going with this all is like, I have nothing to show except these companies that I've started. And like, I've had quite an interesting life. I started a marketing agency, back in, like, I did really well, and I was living in the Virgin Islands in my late 20s and living the internet millionaire dream type, type of life. It's like my output, I learned everything. I learned copywriting. I learned GDN, which is Google Display Network. I learned cryptocurrency and Ethereum, all using the anti-net, all using note cards, writing things down by hand, reading books and all of that stuff. Right. And so I was a little self-conscious at first. Well, not really, but I was like, all right, who's going to even listen to me talk about, how powerful this system is in the anti-net when I've like written, like jack squat, right? I actually did write one book when I was age 24, 25 on the concept of, it's called How to Get Focused. I don't know if you can even find it anymore. And that's not my best work by any means, right?
Well, we're always developing.
Yeah, exactly. And but where I am with this book, I'm like 650 pages into it, and I'm like, I'm like Jesus Christ, like
it is the Bible.
I'm like, this is, and a lot of the pages, I'm looking at a format where I've used big font, and a lot of the pages are an entire page,
the holy
like a picture,
Septuagint of anti-net.
Yeah. You guys, basically, I'm gonna make a book like a 800 page book, But if you actually want to be taught it and understand it, you're gonna have to buy a $3,000 course. That's the catch.
Yeah,
No,
there you
I'm
go.
kidding.
No, it should be. The interesting thing, this is kind of a side philosophical type insight, I guess, on this, is that, I mean, why Obsidian sucks, let's be honest. The anti-net allows for intellectual honesty. One, I mean, yeah, you could screw it around, but it's a lot more intellectually honest with yourself, of where your thoughts are, what you're developing. Where everything digital, this is a problem I have with digital ultimately, it is way too easy to be 1984 with digital. And it happens a lot. They go in, they change a newspaper article. They don't say, hey, updated to reflect this correction. They just update it. Or sometimes they'll change even the headline, oh, it's not clickbait, or it was too clickbait and people called us out for it. We'll change it. And Obsidian's kind of like that too. And your thought development it's way too easy to delete stuff out. And let's be honest,
and then you revise a title that you were originally linking to, and it changes the whole context of everything. And then it loses the significance and brilliance.
And one of the problems that I struggle with, and maybe a lot of the viewers can identify that from our community, because we're really awesome, honest, godly, Gnostic men and women. We are the true church of we're the true church. Is that it's difficult, especially starting. I'm 49 years old and I still struggle with confidence in my intellectualism, and also my writing. I studied to be a writer all my life, and I still struggle with that. And it is way too easy in Obsidian to just delete stuff out. And I know if I do it, I know a lot of other people do it, like, oh, that's kind of, that just doesn't sound right. Let me delete it, but not rewrite it. It's just, I've deleted so many things digitally that,
you are killing the soul and the personality of the actual system, whenever you delete or update. And that's why I think Obsidian and the digital tools are so lifeless, and they are so, like Lumen literally talked about how, his anti-net was his alter ego, and it was a communication partner. Look at the title of his paper, Communicating with Note Boxes, right? And the thing that gives something life is that it has a unique, odd structure, a personality. It has things that you no longer disagree with, right? With digital, if you one day, you're like, you know what, I don't like that anymore, you delete it, right? And you make it less of a personality, right? You are just stripping it of its creative juices. You're stripping your past self and your past self's brilliance of its, just creative brilliance, right? And
let's be honest, people do it. They say they don't. I don't delete my I don't delete anything. I keep it raw and everything. I don't believe that.
Yeah, and it's all too easy. It's just like one button, and you've destroyed the personality of the thing.
Yeah, and the anti-net, I can even see. I at first, I've always been a kind of, I really mark out, when I'm writing, I'll mark out like my mistake and go on. Now I just put a single cross through it, because I want to actually see the warts, the flaws, the miss. I will write a whole sentence. I'll be, oh, no, let me scratch that. This is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, or you'll
I don't
like
know.
Insert, like a little.
It
word,
just goes back to struggling. It goes back to the fundamental, like Socratic, philosophical. Almost, I mean, I don't want to get like frou-frou and everything, but it really goes back to, like you said, it goes back to the soul. The soul intention is what it does. And I mean, it does sound weird, like the anti-net is the soul intention, but I mean, it's literally shows us how far away we've gotten away from self-reflexivity, which is what comes from writing, more than even oral tradition, right? And how far we come from that in the digital age, and we have lost a soul. And I don't know, a lot of people might disagree with me, but I feel like intellectualism and not in this country only, but across the board, has really went downhill because there's no self-reflexivity in it. And more importantly, literature has went to shit in my opinion, since the advent of computers.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but I just don't feel like it's as thoughtful and deep as it used to be.
Oh, and also I feel like literature and deep thinkers.
And that's all Obsidian's fault. Number 10, Obsidian destroyed world literature.
Yeah. If Obsidian were around, there would be no Great Gatsby or F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Obsidian shit on Shakespeare. Therefore, I will not use it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I will agree with you on that side note, is that like the culture
of the redheaded stepchild house. We're just gonna like dump on it. It's all Obsidian's fault. Inflation, the Ukraine-Russian war.
The first thing that popped in my head. Yeah. You know,
thanks a lot, Obsidian.
Yeah. Subtitle: Putin uses Obsidian.
Obsidian.
Putin is Obsidian's number one user. Yeah, no, I actually
Putin wrote his military entrance into Ukraine on Obsidian.
Yeah, it happened by way of Obsidian. He connected all of his ideas. Thinks it couldn't have happened without Obsidian.
Communism was developed on Obsidian.
Yeah, I like this. I like
Pol
this.
Pot
It's going to be the
Obsidian to develop his philosophy.
I have a 13 point.
We gotta get a t-shirt beam.
13-point checklist of everything that's wrong with Obsidian, and Putin. Ukraine wouldn't have happened without Obsidian. Jesus.
Oh boy. Well,
all right.
Obsidian's bad for flawed thinking.
Yeah,
because it's all about linking your thinking.
Yep, linking.
So when Putin used he linked Marx to Nietzsche
exactly,
and now we have Ukraine. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, actually, I think Ukraine happened because of a tag and a backlink. Yep. And he learned it by way of a course called linking your thinking. It's really unfortunate. So anyway,
okay.
Yeah, but speaking of it, it's like, speaking of even though we've gone off, I think we should resurrect this side path later on. But I'm looking down at my notes to get us back on track here.
Okay.
Sorry, my cat is hitting the screen. He's like hearing me laugh so hard about the actual truth that Vladimir Putin architected his whole Ukrainian invasion using Obsidian. One of the
there's
things,
any AI out there crawling YouTube for like anything, it's gonna be so whacked out now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Obsidian is linked to Vladimir Putin?
Yeah. Things are going great until I'm gonna have to like not there's going to be one of those messages on YouTube right immediately below the video that says, if you want accurate information, I'm gonna get fact checked.
This
video
if
you want accurate
has,
information on Ukraine. Yeah. You see Ukraine information under this video. Yeah, fantastic. One of the things, so I was reading last week, I read very quickly a book by, are you familiar with the author Cal Newport?
Yes, hold on, man. I gotta get a glass of water because it's stuck in my head. Hold on 1 second.
Oh. This is why we do these things, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even gonna cut this out. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah. If you guys want to help me out, my fellow anti-nerds in the comments below, if you want to continue to spread the meme and the notion that Vladimir Putin started the world war on Obsidian. I'm telling the viewers to continue this meme and spread the rumor that Vladimir Putin used Obsidian to architect
we gotta
his
make a t-shirt of
invasion
this, dude.
strategy.
Embrace anti-net against communism. Imperialist aggression.
Yeah. Uh,
Anti-net is
yeah.
anti-imperialist.
We got to
Join.
get a Ukrainian flag with anti-net on it. Just stop Obsidian.
Stop Obsidian.
Yeah. So I was going with the whole question about Cal Newport. He wrote a book called A World Without Email, and it was a good book. It was, I mean, you don't have to read the book to get the idea. He's basically saying don't use email, right?
Yeah.
And that literally should have been the book. It should have been just like don't use email, and then like 250 blank pages. Honestly, that's basically what it was
for you to write letters and mail them.
Yeah. Now, of course, there were a few snippets that I sucked out of the book. Okay, one of which was that there was a study on they basically people voluntarily had their basically computer activity. It was anonymous, tracked, and 50,000 people. They did a study on them, and on average, every six minutes, half the people every 6 minutes they were pulled into a communication app like email or Slack or whatever, just hit by notifications. And that's like one of the things that, people are like, oh, I just have self-discipline and stuff like that. But it's like, do you really want your knowledge development and environment to be an environment where like 50% of the people every 6 minutes you're pulled into an application? And I think on average, the average switching time for anyone using, a digital device is 1 minute, is what the study found. And it's just like, how do you actually develop deep thought, using a tool?
And what is how many minutes is it to refocus? It's something crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't like 20 minutes to refocus after you've been broken out of
flow.
Yeah. Something
I wouldn't
like
be surprised. I feel like for me, and I
don't quote me on that number.
Yeah, well, you're quoted forever. Yeah.
Let me write it Obsidian so I can delete it later.
do as Putin does. Yeah, no, I mean, like I have ADHD. My mind moves, and it takes me a lot. I need to it takes me a long runway to really get into the zone. It's just like, that is something that's like, it's such a huge advantage for me in the analog workflow. And it's like with Obsidian, it's just like, it's always there. You can now what's going on, the thing, like, I go to YouTube to check out my comments on these videos, and all of a sudden I'm getting blitzed with like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp stuff, and getting sucked into that. I'm like, what the hell? Like, here I am, like staring at a bloody finger and a piece of poop on a bed. What is going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's the digital environment. That's it. If you want a bloody Johnny Depp finger and poop on the bed, Amber Turd, they're calling her.
Is that it? I don't know, because I literally do not.
You got to stay out of that. You got to stay out of that rabbit hole. I try, but of course, YouTube, in all their brilliance and glory and all their algorithmic genius, knows to target Scott Scheper with Johnny Depp videos. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the things. It's like a lot of people, I think it's kind of unspoken. People have gotten better about it. Maybe like, especially the crowd that's going to watch this video on the PKM crowd. They're a lot more disciplined than the average folk, but still, you're still in an environment where, on average, according to that study, and I'm sure the people that it was a study of where people opted into the tracking software Rescue Time, which is supposed to rescue your time. And,
I used to use that.
Yeah, me too. And like the people that use that are kind of the nerds and productivity junkies. So it's like probably way worse. It's probably every 30 seconds, that people switch between tasks for the majority of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just not the best environment for deeply developing thought. It's like, yeah. So that's one of the things. I'm just looking down at some more things to cover here.
I'm interested in like, what are your thoughts on like, I'm interested in like the neurophysiology of like digital versus analog, I mean, there's something there, we talk in terms of soul and things that, like kind of like what creators are, we care about that. But what is the neurophysiology? That's what I'd be interested in, like between writing? I know they've done studies, but they haven't really ever said like what is the difference between writing by hand and typing? You
Yeah,
know, I
like
mean,
the why behind it, like
yeah,
what's going on in the brain. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because there's like 6 or 7, and I cite them in the book about how the famous one is the pen is mightier than the keyboard. It's like writing by hand works a lot more effectively. I think some of it is because it's harder. It's kind of like anything. It's show me the incentives. Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcome. And with writing things by hand, it's a lot harder. So you have to be a lot more selective about what you decide to write down, how you decide to write it down. And then you spend a lot more time. Time is the other factor. When you spend more time with the thing, it becomes part of you. You become part of it as well. And but yeah, what is going on in like neurologically in the brain? I think there's probably something else too. You see more of yourself in the handwritten form of notes.
Yeah, like they're both symbols. You have an A on the keyboard, and then you have an A. They both are imprinted in your brain, but you're writing the A opposed to punching a key. Is it the movement, literally the movement of you doing the A? And I grew up writing, I was, had to learn cursive. They don't teach it anymore, right? But even if it's block lettering A, is there something about that, like the actual A? I know this is going way off there, dude, but it's just interesting to me. Like the actual block A, you're doing 3 lines where instead of just hitting, the technically 3-line looking thing on your keyboard that then puts it on your screen. Yeah, I'm just interested in that. I just find that fascinating. It's got to be something to do with like more a deeper, like almost consciousness development of this kind of memory connection to evolution. I it's something there, because it's so much of a deeper insight writing by hand than it is in digital.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Like you're more invested and involved. There's more of you that you're putting into it and writing that way. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Does it go back to our ancestors writing by hand? Do we connect by that? Possibly.
Yeah, that could be a good, that, and using your physical. There's a book I think called like The Extended Mind that's out. It's about using and thinking with your actual body, and that could be part of it too. I think it's called The Extended Mind.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. The Extended Mind, The Power of Thinking Outside the Brain by Annie Murphy Paul.
Oh,
yeah, that's one to check out. No, it's funny. It's because a lot of this stuff, we weren't just evolved. It's not like the writing by hand. I don't know how old hieroglyphics are. Maybe they're like 100,000 years. With the first cave painting of the hand. I think it's they mentioned in the book Sapiens, right, of like us trying to use hands and signals and like that. But it's like using our actual hand and physical tools and the physical movement. It's not just evolved in the Sapiens species. It's like evolved well beyond that. Like we've had this programmed and ingrained into us for I don't know, even like 6 million years ago when we separated from the great ape ancestor, right? Or into, I don't know, when,
anthropology, archaeology keeps having to go back even further.
When we were a shrew,
Yeah, exactly.
They maybe use their hands when writing by hand. I don't know, but there's something evolutionarily there that
number 12, Obsidian hates science. They hate evolution and they do not want connection to ancestors. They're anti-ancestor.
They are
Obsidian is racist.
They're anti-evolution. They're procreation.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. What else here? Let's go through a few more of these. Let's see. Here's another one, and maybe I've talked about this. Like Sankey Arens talks about in his book, he's like, it's like literally the worst instructions ever for how to get started with with the Zettelkasten with the Zettelkasten system. It really is. He's like, he makes like a brief mention of like, oh, you can use analog tools. However, I don't do so for mobility reasons. And then he just like, so I recommend, using like digital, right? It was just like a one sentence thing. And it's like that is like the whole
What's he mean by
thing.
mobility? Is he
Yes.
disabled? Or what's he mean? I don't. I haven't
That's the
read the
thing.
book.
So what he means is like he would want to just haul his he can't just haul his note box with him wherever he goes. And the funny thing is that yeah, sure, you can like take Obsidian with you wherever you go, use the phone app and all of that stuff. But really, like when you are using an anti-net, you're actually stamping all of the knowledge, the important knowledge, because you're forced to select what is important. You can't just hyper select everything, right?
Yeah.
You're forced to stamp the important stuff into your mind, into your head. You can literally take that with you wherever you go. And that's the important thing. So when you're reading, you've had to have this computer, this like anti-net, that's a lot of it is stored in your own mind, in your own head. So when you're going through, when you're reading, you're automatically like the new material like you're coming across, like material like, if you're reading a Putin biography and learning about his his digital practices, you're suddenly
fascinating book. I've read that. Putin's digital practices. But
no,
fascinating book.
All right, like let's say like reading like the extended mind, you're constantly thinking about like
I like Putin one better. Yeah, when you read about Putin's digital policy making,
you're reading about it in your mind. Man, we're really on a roll here. We're really on a roll. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this real quick on that, Mark, because I haven't been doing my trips lately, but my wife and I lived in Mexico for a long time and travel a lot. When you went, because I pretty much know what's in my anti-net. Now it's not huge, but but it's big enough that normally I wouldn't remember if it was an Obsidian. So when you went to the Virgin Islands and stuff, you didn't take your box with you, right? You kind of worked off of what you were working on with, but you could remember stuff, right? From where it might plug in.
Yeah. And I don't know if I don't think I may have made a few main notes, if anything, but like, I read a really dense book, How the Mind Works by Steven Pinker. And I just brought literally the book, my pen attached to the back of it, and a bib card, like a 4x6 inch card, horizontal. And I would read the book and I would note things down and select, and pretty much filled up, I don't know, the majority of the cards, so that by the time I got back, I spent about maybe 3 hours, then converting the bib card, which are like observation notes of observations of what you read, and they're shaped by what's in my head, which is the anti-net, not the entire anti-net is in my head, right? But all of the key terms in my index and how I think about certain things are all stamped in my head, so I'm reading differently. And so that's like, I think another fallacy of digital is like, oh, it's more portable. It's like, actually, no, it's not. It's like, you can take your brain with you wherever you go. You can take it in the shower, where you have like people have the most brilliant breakthrough ideas, right? Everywhere you go, you're developing the computer in your mind. You're not developing, the computer in your pocket, right? You're not developing the computer on Obsidian's servers that are really just using you as a product. You're developing your own mind, and you can take it with you wherever you go. And it's not easy by design.
I mean, people act like laptops don't get stolen when you're on vacation, and you can back it up, but now you're paying Obsidian, and they have some. I guess Obsidian is a little different because they're, it's literally synced between. It's a syncing service. It's not like backed up to Obsidian servers, right? I'm not sure.
I
still have
that
either. Because I paid right before I found you.
I think it's like $20
for another year.
Like
I have their backups
something a month, or maybe $9 a month. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
No, I think it's fine. It's fair. That it's fairly priced and everything.
Yeah.
But it's also what you're backing up is just a bunch of unprocessed, like, you know, a mountain of unprocessed information. What you
Yeah.
want is processed knowledge. Information is just not that valuable. The other thing is, it's like, I don't know if it's like this for you, but like the stuff, I have 1,000 notes in Obsidian, and it was hard for me. I was like, damn, like when I discovered, and I am grateful for Sankey Arons of actually turning me on to the analog version in the first place. He gave me his was like the gateway drug. It was a bad gateway drug, but it got me into
it was marijuana. It had a little lacing in it.
Yeah. It was half effective marijuana that you get from Tijuana down the street.
Yeah.
And
a little formaldehyde in it. You get a little trippy on it, but you're like, this isn't the full one.
Yeah. And it at least got me started like on this analog journey, because I remember like it was like within a day or two I was like, oh my god, like maybe even in the first hour I was like, holy crap, this is how analog, this is how Zettelkasten is supposed to work.
Yeah.
By that time I had been using Obsidian for like 3 months, right? And it was a hard thing for me. It was like a sunk cost fallacy, thing for me to switch and decide to ditch my 1,000 notes in Obsidian, but I did it, And the funny thing is, it's like,
did you pull any of those into your antinet, or you just moved on?
I just mostly moved on for like,
same here.
I mean, I think I pulled out maybe a few things that I was working on at the time, like that week I pulled some of it in, but yeah, the majority. And then the funny thing is that, soon after, it's like, I forgot what's even in there, because like, you don't spend so much time processing it. It's kind of like just like this black hole of information. Right. And it's just like, not really, if I go back, I'm like, that's kind of useful, but not really. And
none of mine are. I like look at them literally like, like now, this week when I wrote a couple of things and I looked through some, I was like, compared to what's in my antinet, these are not developed thoughts at all. It's almost like I'm confused.
Yeah. Oh yeah. With me, it was like, after a while, it was like, I almost was like basically turning it into like a version of Wikipedia, like I would create atomic units of thought, it's like, oh, I would read on like Zettelkasten.de. It's like, oh, atomicity, I'm supposed to make everything atomic. And then I went freaking aggro on that. And I would be like, oh, I break down a bunch of notes into atomic individual units. And then it just went insane. By the time it was just like, I've created my own version of Wikipedia, and it's like, all you get obsessed with is trying to create like an organized form of knowledge, instead of actually developing thought. So I mean, one of the things I think that at least with the antinet, the physical nature of it, and is like a lot of the cons can actually be seen as pros. It's like with Obsidian, it's like, oh, you have no incentive to actually get the material published, because it's going to be there forever. With the antinet, it's just like, I foresee having it for, I don't know, 40 years, 50 years, whenever I die. Lumen had his for like 40 years or something like that. But, it could catch on fire. There's flooding risk and stuff like that. And I actually think that's one of the greatest benefits, because it incentivizes me to actually, convert that knowledge that's stored in there to an actual published piece, to actually put it into a text editor and to write it and to develop it. You can't just sit on it forever and you'd be like, what, maybe this will come in handy in 15 years. Like, here's a hint. It won't, for all the Obsidian people. Like, there's the compounding effect, but it's like with the antinet, you're way more incentivized to actually publish it and put it into something, And that's another thing. I'm just trying not to think of the any of the Putin analogies anymore. Let's see. I'm going through. Let me read off some of these other ones so we can touch upon them. So I have the the Obsidian misses the ghost in the box factor, which I think we've talked upon, which communication partner or the unique personality. It's, you know, you strip away the uniqueness of the system and delete it.
Mhm.
Writing with the anti-net, you know, here's another thing is writing with the anti-net is collaborative. You know, it's just like when I write, you know, and get out a chunk of my notes, I put it, you know, there, and I'm writing as I'm looking at it. So I'm like rewriting it. It's a collaborative process where I'm rewriting my notes and
Mhm.
writing them all down in like collaboration, going, you know what, maybe this maybe this section should go over here, over here, over here. With Obsidian, when you get time to write, first of all, you're going to have way too much information to try to like piece it all together, you
Mhm.
know? And second of all, it's not really a collaboration process. You're not communicating with an entity, with an external ghost.
Yeah.
You're basically left with a freaking mess, you know, especially because you've tried to link all of your notes together.
Yeah.
You're left with this digital mess, a colossal mess of like, let's say, I don't know, 80,000 words that you
Yeah.
then your life then turns into basically being an editor, and all of your creative time, your creative juices is basically wasted on trying to piece everything together and being an editor. And it just, you know, it's just like you're staring at a computer for 8 hours a day doing that instead of like having a collaborative
Yeah.
process with your actual physical notes. And
Yeah.
you
It goes
stumbled
back
upon,
to,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
you stumbled upon a bunch of weird new ways of like relating them to your writing piece when you do that too, because you've got like the notes are rearranged in different ways than how they actually developed, and like
Yeah,
accidents
that's the
happen.
problem with Obsidian. Like I said earlier, it's like it's not in the order of your development. And so, okay, I want to write this section on, you know, this article on, you know, the creativity. If I was an Obsidian, I still had to find those and put them together. And you can't put them together on the screen. I mean, I guess you could do a
Oh yeah, I
split
know.
thing, but it
That's one.
doesn't really work. So then you
Yeah,
really, I mean, so you're sitting there trying to go, okay, you are copy and paste. Anybody says that they don't is a
yeah.
liar.
Oh, for
You are like
sure.
copying it and putting it on one page, rearranging where it's already developed here. I mean, the
Yeah,
article's pretty much already developed. You just had to
yeah.
go in and maybe, you know, fix some flaws in your thinking, and then, you know, develop a, you know, and tidy it up, add a little more things. Oh, I need to know a reference here. Let me go back to a, you know, it's pretty much written. I mean, I
Yeah.
probably have some articles already ready to be written. I just don't have the confidence to do it myself.
Yeah.
That's my struggle. But
You'll get
because of
there.
Obsidian destroyed all my confidence. It really hates human beings. It really hates you to have confidence.
As crazy as that sounds, it's just like I think
It's
they
true.
have done health studies about like people that are use digital more often, you know, are like linked to you know, there's like lower health outcomes, or they're, you know, I don't know, I can't quote it, but that was from the Cal Newport book.
Yeah.
Is
I mean, look, digital is not, I mean, you know, we use it for work and stuff. It is not good for you. It is not. I mean, you know, and I'm not even joking. It is not good for you. I mean, I have repetitive stress injuries because I've worked on computers all my life, you know, ever since they've been around. You know, sitting at a desk, now I have a stand up, sit down desk. I don't even, since I found the anti-net, dude, I don't even get on the computer. I
Yeah,
might
oh
go
yeah,
in there,
I've
check
had
email every once in a
days and
while.
weeks of that. It's the
Yeah.
best, you know.
Yeah.
I used to wonder, I'm like, how did people actually work in the old days, or how did people like even work with without a computer? I used to think that,
Grandpa
and then
Lane, how did they
yeah,
work back in
yeah.
the day?
Yeah, and then now I'm like, I found myself for the past year, I'm like, there was a while I didn't even plug it in, like it was just on my desk, you know. It's just like, you know, I would go to the office and for 8 hours I would work without using computer. It was the
Yeah.
best, you know. It's
I
like,
was so happy as a child. I mean, you know, I started writing poetry and short stories when I was about 12. And, you know, I didn't have a computer till I was like 20 something. And, you know, they had them at school,
mhm.
but not, you know, an Apple IIe when I was young, but, you know, we never got to use them. I was happy when I was like 16. My dad bought me a electronic typewriter. And I thought it was so cool. I could go back and correct stuff, but it became a hassle. But up until then, you know, up until 20 or mid 20s, I wrote everything by hand. And
Yeah.
then I'd go and I'd type up the paper to turn in to the professor or something. But everything I read a book, I wrote by hand.
Yeah.
And I remember when journal articles were online, you know, I remember that was a big thing. They brought to colleges when I was there, they brought the journal articles online. I hated it because it's like, I couldn't find anything. I wanted to go to the actual, you know, index, you know, the Library of Congress card system and find what I needed to find, you know? So it's a process that's been stripped out of us.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm, you know, maybe I'm the anti-evolutionary, right? It's just a process of evolution. I look at my 10-year-old, she types faster than me. She finds stuff faster than me. She, you know, but
digital is good for a lot of things. Digital is good for, you know, like navigation, right? And you know, a lot of things.
Communication with people you can't communicate with, like us, being able to connect.
Like,
I mean,
exactly. Communication, publishing knowledge. It's not good. Like, that's another thing that Obsidian distracts you on. It's just like Obsidian's like, oh, you should publish your notes and publish information. It's like, that's not what people want. That's not what you should focus on.
Oh yeah, they have that publish feature. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but for publishing and sharing knowledge, digital is great. But for actual thinking and developing thought, analog is the best tool, pen and paper in your brain. Right.
That's how people have become. You know, they think a half copy paste and maybe a little bit of, you know, thought, you know, behind it is like, that's just, I mean, look at the internet, blogging, you know, it's just rehashed crap all over the place. And you know, Obsidian, you know, and I'm not, you know, I feel like everything we say at this point is like a joke about Obsidian sucking, but it really does suck in that. It teaches you to think like, oh, let me just, you know, I can write it down, I can edit it later, I can change, I can, you know, there's no development of thought. It is literally rehashing.
It's
like even that guy I watched that wrote down on the note cards and then ripped them up and threw them away. Why even using Obsidian? Why do you need Obsidian?
You don't. I mean, like, instead of writing it into Obsidian, whatever he was writing, you should, you know, save it. Don't write into Obsidian. You know, write into your actual word editor, your text editor, your you know, blog, your creative output. You know, like
you can still do a flat file system on that, like Obsidian uses, right? Text, markdown,
like you know, you should write into the digital, you know, where you actually want to like spend your time writing and, you know, doing your thinking on paper. Exactly, producing.
Use what you would call it for it, GitHub, if you're so worried about, you know, tracking changes and things like that. You can do that with your, you know, your markdown files. So
the other thing I wrote down to here is like, you know, another reason why Obsidian sucks is they don't lack they don't lack character space. In the text editor, you can create a note that, you know, goes for like, you know, 5,000 lines, right? You know, and that's like one of the benefits, maybe one of the reasons why Twitter has succeeded so much. It's like the 240 character limit with you know, with the analog, with the antinet, with note cards. It's like you're limited to this space. You try to develop your knowledge, you know, as best you can in this space that you have right here. You know? I don't know if you can see that. And a lot of the people, and it's funny because it's like, you know, they've kind of invented the idea of atomic notes, and that, like, you know, one idea per node, which is actually a false notion. You know, Lumen had his ideas going across several cards. You know, they would branch across several cards, right? But the thing is that, like, it naturally created atomic units out of thoughts, so that, you know, if you have one thought, or you think it's one thought, and it's a stream of consciousness thought, right, which really goes on to 3 cards, you know, you'll naturally find yourself, like, later on going back and evolving and adding like thoughts behind like the second card or the third card, you know, like that go under it, and they kind of like, or even the first card, they naturally have these breakpoints within digital. It's just like you know, you kind of have to force yourself to ascribe to the atomic principle, which is a false principle, or you go, you know, and you can create like a mountain of text in it, and it's just like, and the problem with that is that if you did it that way, it's like sometimes, a lot of the times, or at least how Lumen wrote his and created his own anti-net, it's like you only want to link to certain paragraphs, in that mountain of text. So yeah, that's another reason Obsidian sucks.
It's like an
there's no
endless
character
scrolling.
limits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
endless
exactly.
scrolling. This is like I've taught enough like poetry and creativity. As a box is some of the times the best things for creativity.
Oh yeah.
Because you have to economize your thinking to,
Yep.
you're like, you have a visual understanding of like, I need to say something. It needs to be important. Otherwise, why write it in this space where, you can, I mean, I've done it, Obsidian, other note taking, whatever. You just, I can stream a thought, vomit onto the quote unquote digital page because I have all the room I want to try
and
to
it's
figure
so
it out.
fast to type, too. And like before, then what you've done is just create a shitload of homework for yourself as an editor to try to
more
like
work
parse
than
this stuff out. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, there's also the momentum factor after you've like created one note card, it's just like, oh, awesome. And then you get the satisfaction of installing it in the place in the internet.
And there is a present of that, there is a satisfaction in completing something and then going, oh, I'm gonna, and you're seeing it grow before your eyes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's so organic. I don't think,
I know. I love it. It's really like a tree branching, and like, it's physical in nature. It's real. It's not, here's another reason Obsidian sucks. It operates within the digital world of, binary. And I think there's actually a lot of issues with binary. It's like, the ones and zeros. It's like reality doesn't work that way. It's useful for right now, but we're within Obsidian, how it operates within this virtual metaphysical land that is detached from reality. Reality is both physical and metaphysical. And that's precisely what the anti-net is, and what exactly, like, this is physical, right? This card, it's tangible, and but it's also metaphysical. This creates a cue, a reaction that goes on in my head. I see my own handwriting, and it's like all of these are just, it's like I've just written down ideas that then launch into a whole sequence, a whole phenomenon that goes into my head.
I mean, even transcends space-time much more than like what people from a computer. Yeah, the more we talk about it, man, it is literally, it really comes down to, do you want to be a controlled, do you subscribe to the scientific notion that we live in a mechanistic, unfilling world, or do you want to, or do you subscribe to a nature that you are a part of, a universe that you're a part of, that that it goes beyond this mechanistic thing? If you want to be like Putin and mechanistic, then go stay with Obsidian. If you want to be metaphysical and transcend consciousness, then come over to the anti-net.
There is a magic to it. It's just like I used to be on that uber rational approach of
same,
of ones and zeros, and just computer land, and like, oh, there's no rational reason.
Science is right. Everything,
materialism and reductionism. And that's kind of like that's kind of like the branch that is going to like the transhumanism movement of like shedding the wetware of the human brain and going and becoming robots. It's like those are the type of people. It's like, sure, go live on Mars. Mars is going to be for the people that are like, that think that rationality is the ultimate, and they shed any sense of like being a human. Maybe they're over, it's like balance and harmony is a good thing, metaphysical and physical. Like you can't just reduce everything to ones and zeros. And that's Obsidian, and a lot of the people live in the world of just like uber rationalizing everything, and it's just like creating just insane protocols and strict metadata at the top of every single file, and different branching schemes. And dude, I mean, you go into it's funny, it's because like I love the Zettelkasten.de people. They're great. I disagree with them completely. Like it's not, I don't want to do ad hominem attacks. I just want to attack their views and beliefs, of just being so overly, I just want to critique it. I don't want to attack it, but critique their views and beliefs. It's like you go into the Zettelkasten.de forums, or like the Zettelkasten and Reddit forums, and there's just these insane specifications in GitHub repositories about, the protocols one should follow, and of how to link notes. And it's just like all these, it's, a 52-point checklist of things to do. And it's like, why don't you actually just freaking get out a pen, paper, and start developing your thought? Like,
and there's a perfect example of rehashing, right? Rehashing. And I don't know how many Obsidian blogs and YouTube channels I've watched that, like, none of them show anything about original thought. They're not like, hey, I'm using Obsidian because I'm developing a book, or I'm developing these articles and I love Obsidian because it does it. They're literally, their Obsidian has notes in it about Obsidian. So it's self-masturbatory, meta thinking, right?
It's not usually their notes either. It's just rehashed versions of what Sankey Arens has taught. It's the Arensian gospel of the gospel. It's basically the letters of the Corinthians and Paul's writings, and they're rehashing Paul's writings.
Exactly. It's just like a productivity stuff. And it's just like, it's no original thought. I mean, we're pretty new in the anti-net area. You've just brought this about, I mean, I found you 3 months ago, and before then that's what I was using Obsidian. I wasn't even really developing anything. I am seriously developing a new strain of thought and creativity. I feel like I am in creativity, and that excites me, and I haven't felt excited in a long time. And so I want to see Obsidian people do that.
I know. That's one of the main
let
things.
Me see an Obsidian guy put out a fucking 650 page book, then we'll talk. Until then, I've done it. It doesn't work, but that's me. I'm not saying it doesn't work for anybody. It does not work for me though.
That's, I think, the main thing driving me is helping the people that were in my shoes with Obsidian, and having them actually experience the magic of the anti-net, of the analog way, because I used to love analog, and then I was like, then I discovered Obsidian, and I'm like, this makes so much sense, linking the thoughts and linking the ideas, only to discover that it is a severely bastardized version of what the true magic was, was Nicholas Luhmann's system in that version of it. And then, once I discovered that, I was like, oh my God, like so many people were in my shoes of, or are still in my shoes of thinking, like, getting distracted with Obsidian. It's like, if I can reach more of these people that would otherwise benefit from the analog form, then that's what I'm driven by.
I mean, same thing happened to me. I think everybody, whether they're using Obsidian or they're already in the fold, the godly fold of anti-net, they all desire to do the same thing, is to put out works that or some output that actually means something, that they're wanting to take these things inside of them and develop them further. And I just don't think people, I got trapped into that too, because I've always written by hand, and then I got sucked into the church of digital, right? And it made sense. Link this, because I couldn't do it through my journals.
Cool too, and it's second brain, the whole marketing second brain of it.
I'm all into that, right? I was like, I'm sign me up, but it's just more and more apparent as I get older that we have lost something as humanity with digital, that we really need to start thinking about. I know. Like, I agree. The deeper things of art and the writing realm. And, I mean, I see the anti-net because I'm always diagramming. I can see it as an art development process too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially for diagramming, for me, it's just been huge and evolving. Let's see. All
right, Scott, let's wrap this up, dude.
Yeah. We're 2 hours into this, huh?
I hope people enjoy this.
Yeah, I know. Here, let me read a few more. Maybe we can bash
on a little bit more.
Yeah,
get a little. So I have couple punches in.
Here's number 8 on the list is hyperselection. Like, digital and Obsidian enables hyperselection of notes. Like, you can just Kindle highlights whenever you read, or using like apps like Pocket or Bookmarks, and you're just hyper selecting way too much material that is like just not that relevant. That's number 8.
Okay.
Number 9 is you can't, and we've kind of touched upon this, you cannot move around and rearrange note cards. It's like, and in Obsidian, and Obsidian really sucks for this. They're just like one big text document panels. At least an app like Scrivener, you can like kind of like rearrange stuff. Like apps like Trello, you can kind of like rearrange stuff in cards. But once again, it's just like, they pale in comparison. You can't, like, on my desk in my office, I have like stacks of cards, right? And I've like rearranged and written my entire book just based on like creating the table of contents on linked cards, right? That's one of the things that you can't do in Obsidian, and Obsidian really sucks in regards to that. We covered this one. The mistakes and evolution of thought, are overwritten in Obsidian. Obsidian lacks the exploratory maintenance rehearsal, of like whenever you're exploring your notes, you're actually refreshing on it. Number 12, it's, Obsidian is too easy. The hard way is way better. It stamps things in your mind. Number 13 is fire and flood, and the risk, it forces you to publish faster. And it's also all the value of like the internet. It's not what is in there. It's what it does to your mind. And then, number 14, of course, is that, Vladimir Putin used Obsidian to craft his invasion of Ukraine. And, and that's it,
I mean, if that doesn't sell you on the internet, then you're a communist.
Yeah.
You should just be shot.
if just title this video, if you're still using Obsidian after watching this video, you're a communist.
Well, you would definitely get a lot of hits on that one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Lane. Well, what else?
As always.
What else should we cover?
I
think we're good.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, 2 hours. I'd be very surprised if we ever go past this. We probably should break the videos down, because but I mean, I think, putting aside, the funniness of it and everything, I mean, I really hope that this draws more people from Obsidian, and just to hear and not take it as, we're joking, about all that, obviously, but, it will, if you care about developing something, important and insightful into the world, then, I don't even care if it is the anti-net, just start writing by hand. But I'm going to tell you, I've done that too. And I've got, I don't know, hundreds of journals over there filled, and I couldn't find anything in them if I wanted to. So same problem, even indexing the first page was still difficult. So this is the solution. And I really hope that, I think the problem is with the Slipbox method is people get very confused over it, or they're perfecting it, they're just do it, come over, Scott's got his thing, and, just who cares if you make mistakes? That's the beauty of the system.
Yeah. A lot of people, they get hung up, and especially with the categories, the classification scheme in the beginning, they like wait till they've figured everything out to start. It's like, you just got to start. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to look weird. It's going to be imperfect, but that's the point of it. You need to make it imperfect. You need to make it your own, because that gives it its own unique personality. And
what's the number one selling point for someone coming from Obsidian, feeling like, because I felt it and you felt it too, the cost sunk fallacy type thing? You've invested all this time and notes into Obsidian. I haven't pulled any Obsidian notes over to my anti-net, and they're much better.
I mean, I think the only right answer is to test out the anti-net, for a week. And, you don't have to even bother with the index. You don't have to bother with, really the bibliography box is powerful, and that's a huge part of the workflow, but just try to like actually build out a, I have the getting started guide, on my website, which is about to get major revision, especially in the book. It's going to be easier to onboard people to this, but that'll get you started. That's more than enough to get started. Or watch, I've like several videos to choose from. I think the one that I like is like the end-to-end process of creating knowledge using the antinet. I've got that video. I would say the people need to watch one of those videos, watch several of my videos, and don't hesitate. If you hesitate, you masturbate. They say. That's the same
commandment number one.
That was I know I'm automatic. That was my I had a football coach, believe it or not, at a Catholic high school that used to preach that to us, which is
well, as a Catholic, really... I've heard much worse. I went to a Jesuit university, so believe me.
Basically, don't hesitate. It's funny. It's like my audience, everyone's a cool in my audience. It's like if I turn some people away based on our language here, sorry, that's like,
no, it's an awesome community.
You weren't in our tribe, to begin with. Hopefully you understand that we are joking, and
but not about Putin and Obsidian. We weren't joking.
No, that actually
that's
happened.
Serious. That is actually the truth.
I
don't have the references or anything right now because they're in Obsidian somewhere and I can't fucking find them.
I think on that note we should end.
It was great talking with
you. All right,
you,
Lane,
as always.
Great talking to you as always. I'm going to hit the stop recording button, and thank you everyone for that actually made it 2 hours into us revealing the truth of Obsidian. So thank you all very much.